Everybody to the CORFAC Principals Zoom call. For those that don't know me, my name is Hayam Mizrahi. I'm a principal with MDL Group CORFAC International in Las Vegas, and I'm also the board secretary. It's my privilege to welcome everybody today. Last night I was talking with my wife and I told her how grateful I was to have somebody that I enjoyed so much to be quarantined with. So that's kind of a sign of the times. There are 72 CORFAC offices. Most of you know that. This invitation for this call went out to 75 principals. Joe, tell me the last count. I think you said it was 32. We had 38 principals who accepted the invitation. I think we're pretty close to that on this call today. Not bad for the amount of time that we put this together and also the time differences. So 36 principals representing 28 firms, 8 of which are international on this call today. So some housekeeping, and then I'll introduce the structure of the program and then the panelists. So this is a Zoom call. Most of us have now, it's become a household name. If you've not used Zoom, take a second and familiarize yourself with your interface. Specifically look for the chat box. That's how we'll be fielding questions today. Hit the chat box when you're chatting. Make sure it says to everyone so we can all see it. So what we've planned today are 3 panelists to cover what we've seen on the ground here. It's been about a half of a month since most of this has hit the U.S. Other parts of the world a bit longer, a bit shorter. But we have CORFAC Treasurer Mason Capitani from L. Mason Capitani, CORFAC International in Detroit. He will be talking about property management. He's got a good sized property management operation. So what he's been seeing there, what tenants are doing, what landlords are doing. Joe Latina, Vice President for CORFAC International, Patterson Woods Commercial in Wilmington, Delaware. Joe's going to give us the tenants' perspective. What are tenants saying? What are they doing? How could we be advising them? And then Alan Joel, CORFAC President, Joel Granat in Atlanta, Georgia. He's going to take the landlord perspective. And we've got some prepared remarks. Each of the panelists will talk for 3 to 5 minutes. After they're done, that should take us to the 10 or 15-minute mark. If you have questions along the way, like I said, put them in the chat box. We're going to do this as we go to see how best it is to field them. And then at the end, we'll open it up for an overall Q&A. If there's anything we didn't touch on that is important to you, we can cover it there. Hopefully that sounds good. And then before we jump in, before I start with Mason, let me just recognize the CORFAC staff, Jennifer, Christy, Diane, and of course, Jonathan. Thank you guys, obviously, for jumping on this, learning the technology, coordinating it all, mobilizing so quickly to get us all connected, because that's what CORFAC is about. So I've introduced the panel. Let's jump in, Mason. I'll ask you to first start out with, give us a sense of your property management operation. I know for us at MDL Group here, we have 13 million square feet of properties. We have a nice balanced mix between office, industrial, retail. I'll tell you, our governor came on March 16th, it was a Tuesday evening, and ordered non-essential businesses to close, and in the same breath, close the eviction courts. So that caused a lot of tenants to react. Our rent relief call started 2 days later, probably a day and a half later, March 18th. So that's on our end. What have you seen on your end?
Well, we manage, I think we're 37 office properties, office and medical properties, multi-tenant, anything from small multi-tenant up to larger corporate single user facilities. And we have been inundated by a very large number of requests, emails, asking for rental abatements, deferring the rent. And our approach has been, number one, to be as tactful as possible in our response. The overriding message is we're all in this together, but the response in many respects is a firm, I'm sorry, we really cannot accommodate you because the landlord still has responsibilities that they have to live up to. They have obligations in many respects. They have to pay the mortgage, the utilities, the taxes, the operating expenses, and we rely on the rents to cover those expenses. So we still expect you to pay the rents. We're doing our best to identify the different subsidies and government programs that small businesses or businesses in general can access and go to try and educate the tenants. The overriding theme is, before you look to the landlord, there are opportunities for you to get some relief in the form of government loans, different subsidies, and we're trying to push our tenants that way. So that's been our overriding response at this point.
I think it's important to note that the date today is March 31st. April rents are not even due. To me, I was surprised at how quickly the rent relief calls came in. And then you said it yourself right there. The federal government mobilized and created several different programs. SBA already had some programs out there before tenants have gone through any of that. It seems, and you tell me if we're seeing the same thing, they're already on the phone with the landlord saying, help me, help me.
Yeah, I think that, and I hate to be cynical about this, but there are definitely businesses out there that are struggling with this, especially in the retail world. We don't do a tremendous amount of retail. Most of our business is office and medical, from a management standpoint, at least. I hate to be cynical, but I also think that there's a level of opportunism going on out there. People asking for rental abatements or asking for help that, we're a week or two into this and they're automatically looking to the landlord. And that's the overriding response, is that before you look to the landlord, I want to know that you're looking at these other opportunities, before you look to the landlord. So, our response has been a very firm no, but again, as tactful as possible. These are tenants that you have to deal with in the future. So, we don't want to upset anybody, but we also have a fiduciary to collect the rent. That's our job.
Let's talk about your staff.
Yeah, so first of all, we're paying everybody. We're paying everybody that is working. All of our property managers are working remotely from home. We do have our bookkeeping, accounting staff. Some of our essential staff does come into the office to collect rents, book the rents, just do the normal bookkeeping work that frankly is just very difficult to do on a remote basis. We still have to employ our management, or our maintenance staff, I should say. And we did approach all of our maintenance technicians and basically gave them the choice. Do you want to work, continue to work, or do you want to take this time off? We had 3 that decided that they did not want to work. They wanted to stay home, and we gave them that opportunity, and they took it. Now they're not being paid because it's voluntary. They've decided not to work while this work stoppage goes on. But the vast majority of our staff is continuing to work from a maintenance standpoint. We're doing our best to educate them to take every precaution to protect themselves. Everybody's got boxes of gloves and rubber gloves and sanitary disinfectants, and trying to do the social distancing and all that. But we have a responsibility too to continue to operate these buildings. We have medical buildings too that are operating currently, that we have a responsibility as a management company to continue to oversee. So we can't just shut down, and that includes our maintenance staff as well.
Have you had a property with a positive coronavirus?
We have. We did.
What happened? What did you do?
So we've got a building in Auburn Hills, Michigan. It's about 70,000 square feet. It's a multi-tenant building, but it's about 60% occupied by an international logistics company called Syncreon. And they alerted us on Friday that they had an employee test positive for COVID-19. And they immediately requested that we shut the building down and completely disinfect it. And we brought in, when we agreed, we obviously needed buy-off from the landlord on this, but he didn't hesitate. We immediately closed the building, alerted all the tenants in the building that somebody within the building has tested positive. Of course, you can't identify who the person is, but it doesn't matter. So we've alerted all the tenants, and yesterday and today they're finishing up. We brought in basically a company that's going to come in, the same type of company at Belfour. It's a local company, but they're disinfecting the building and taking every step to disinfect the building. I will tell you, it cost us about $20,000 to completely clean and disinfect the building. And we did not only the tenants space, the Synchron, but the entire building, all the common areas, all of the other tenant spaces. We just didn't, the landlord and the main tenant in question didn't feel like the risk was worth it. We just wanted to proceed. And the tenant, since they have 60% of the building, they're paying 60% of the cost. But the landlord didn't have an issue with it.
Couple questions in the chat box that I'll ask you, and then we'll go over to Joe to give us the tenant's perspective. Do you know the cost per square foot for the cleaning?
Well, I know it was, I don't know if they arrived it on a per square foot basis or based upon the number of offices. I could probably get back to you with, how that cost was derived, but I can tell you it's a 70,000 square foot building, and the cost is going to be somewhere between $18,000 and $20,000.
Wow. Who pays for it? You said 60/40, tenant pays 60?
Yeah, I mean, the tenant's got 60% of the building approximately, so I believe we're going to just carve up the cost on a pro rata basis. And they're agreeable to that. Their message to us was, cost is not a question. We want this building clean. We want a safe working environment, no matter what the cost is. Obviously, the landlord's on the hook for approximately half the cost, so we want it done right, but done for the right price too. And we've got a company that's done a lot of mold remediation and any water issues in any of our buildings, they do this kind of work as well. So we've got a good relationship with the company that came in and did the work for us.
And then you did the work, or the tenant had the
We
company?
coordinated it. The management company coordinated it.
Okay.
And we had people on site there to make sure that the work was done properly.
And Alan, I don't know what, you asked about managed security, who pays for this cost. I don't know specifically what you were referencing. Alan, Joel.
Just did you keep your manned security guard, or did you have him leave? I mean, did you?
There's not a security guard in that building.
On security,
Who did the work?
It was a local company, 360 Restoration, I think is the name of the company. But we vetted them out. They're capable of this type of work. I mean, there's certain chemicals, and it's actually like a fogging machine system where they come in and they spread these chemicals. You've probably seen it on the news. They in China, they were spraying this stuff in the streets. It's very similar to that. They come in and they basically fog the whole building with this disinfectant, and it kills every possible germ.
Mason, you said that the tenant paid 60% of the cost. Did the other tenants pay the balance, or did the landlord pay the balance?
Landlord's paying the balance.
All right, thank you, Mason. There's obviously opportunity to ask more questions here toward the end. We're going to go over to Joe. Before I do, I forgot to say in the introduction, so you all know this is being recorded and will be available for everyone, either for you to distribute to your team or to any clients who might find this information of value. So going to Joe, taking the tenant's perspective, those pesky tenants right now, I say that, a bit tongue in cheek, but right out of the gate, I saw an article, I think it was in CNN, Cheesecake Factory across the board just came out with a position, we're not paying rent during this time. I thought it was a bit audacious. The CEO went on to express what a partnership they have with their landlords. And it almost seemed like the tone of it was, this is my interpretation, that this is okay just to say I'm not paying rent. We have a very well-known I don't know what category they're in, Joe, you'll tell me. It's an Asian restaurant with a panda bear in its logo. They sent our landlord a letter, one of our landlords a letter saying, these are terrible times, and we've decided we'll pay you CAM and half rent until this is over. It was a unilateral decision. It was odd to me, but that's kind of the things that we're seeing. What are you seeing?
I mean, I'm seeing certainly similar situations, but what you got to keep in mind as a tenant, and of course as a landlord as well, is there are no rules right now. For somebody like Cheesecake Factory that says, okay, we made a decision corporately to not pay rent, well, that's great. I'm your landlord. I don't agree with that. You don't have to agree with that. The one thing that primarily that the government has been doing or trying to implement is no late fees or no interest or no, additional expenses to the base rent. But there's no steadfast rules out there right now that require the landlord. I guess I'm really talking more toward the landlord side now, but it requires you to forgive rent, other than your ability and the compassion to do so. Again, I do work. The majority of my business is in retail, but I do work across the board with office and industrial as well, given the market that we're in. I can tell you that every one of my phone calls has been with retail tenants. None of my office tenants have called with any assistance or help, or looking to do anything with regards to negotiating. They've all been pretty much status quo. Now, again, once April hits, we'll see. We're up on the verge of April right now. That could change. Industrial tenants, distribution still is a big part of what's going on right now. Obviously, goods need to get, supply chains need to keep moving. Industrial companies seem to be, at least the ones that I work with, seem to be holding their own at the moment. Again, we'll see what happens in April. The restaurants, the hospitality, the hotels, the trucks, basically they shut down business, as most of you well know. Some of them are fortunate enough to be able to do takeout. The governor in our state actually came back and passed a bill that said that restaurants that have liquor license can actually include alcoholic beverages with their takeout too. The fact of the matter is, it's not enough for them at all. They're all struggling to make payrolls, to keep people employed, those that are open. A lot of them have simply decided it's just not worth it. One of my bigger regional clients, Two Stones Pub, it's associated with a brewery. They basically said it's not what we do. We're not going to try to learn it now. So therefore, we've shut our locations down. Now, of course, there is relief in the form of, basically they're calling it the, CARE Act, I believe, which frankly, I'm reading a little bit more into it, and this is new for all of us, but this will certainly help a lot of restaurants make their payroll in the times that we're currently in. And without knowing how long this goes on, the initial, basically, you're going to get essentially about a month of payroll free if you maintain your tenant or maintain your payroll and maintain your employees at this point in time. The rest of it, whatever's, you're eligible for 2.5 months. You can use it to pay your payroll costs. You can use it to pay your utility costs. You can use it to pay some expenses. You can't use it to pay taxes, but that's okay. There's probably relief coming in that format, down the road further. Obviously, as far as the deadlines, taxes. So they've got relief that way as well. For those tenants, the first thing that I would recommend, if you're approached by a tenant, is to ask them if they have looked in to the CARE Act and the ability to borrow this money to maintain. Point them in that direction. But as far as negotiating, what you can do, there's no set fast rules at all.
Somebody needs to mute.
Sorry, that's not what I'm doing. Anyway, I've seen some tenants, basically some landlords say, look, you're closed. You don't have to pay me rent. That's the best case scenario. I've seen others say, look, I've got expenses. I can understand you're not open. Can you at least pay your net charges for the month? I've seen that aspect of it.
So there's a great question here from Greg, and I want you to take this from the tenant's perspective, not the landlord's perspective. So if a tenant comes to you and says, Joe, you got me into this space, I need help. I don't know what's what. I don't know what's possible. How do you advise your tenant to prepare themselves for any discussion with the landlord?
Depends on the landlord. It depends on the tenant. Some landlords are stronger than others. If you're dealing with a smaller landlord that doesn't have the financial ability, it may be difficult to get, instant relief or long-term relief from that. Depends on how strong you are going into this situation. A lot of restaurants, a lot of hospitality isn't going to make it out of this. We're preparing ourselves for, potential closings and, restaurants that just simply aren't going to ever open again, or smaller, mom and pop stores that just simply can't afford it. It's happening already. it really, answer Greg's question, is it reasonable to ask tenants to provide their financials at this time? I mean, of course. I mean, it's a negotiation just like anything else. I don't know what those financials are going to be able to tell you. I mean, it's going to tell you how they did business in the past, if they were successful or not, but, you know, it doesn't necessarily know what they're doing today and how they're handling it today. And even if they're open or if their takeout business is giving them enough money to maintain. Past financials aren't really going to tell today's picture. Again, from a landlord standpoint, I mean, you're going to have to look at each situation. Is it a viable operation that can operate under a takeout scenario? Can it prosper, or can it at least maintain under the situation? Is it going to simply lose money? Is it better to be closed? And if that's the case, then, as a landlord, it goes back to your financial ability if you can float through this. The ICSC actually just promoted a bill. I don't know how much it's going to get, that basically requires requiring the banks to forego 90 days of commercial paper loans on shopping centers, so that they can pass those savings on to their tenants. I don't know how the banks are going to react, or how that'll affect the banks, or even if they'll get anything moving on it, but it's something that the ICSC is trying to pushing so that relief can get passed down to the tenants. Bottom line, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to just say, looking at the comments, it's clear right now that there is no one size fits all. There is no rule of thumb. The first question about, is it fair to ask for financials? One response to that was, we won't even talk to a tenant without them showing us financials. And the response right after it is, what good are financials right now anyway?
That's my question. So that would be my question to that.
Yeah.
That statement. What good are financials right now?
So let's jump to the landlord side. Alan, now we're advising our landlords. We're getting a barrage of rent relief from tenants across the board, industrial, retail. Seems like office is the least affected. However, some of that, we don't know if it's opportunistic, if it's not. What do you do? And before you answer that, let me just give this observation. I was talking to a client yesterday, and it seems like when you look at the chain of everybody affected here, from the employee to the business, which the business is a tenant, to the landlord, then there's the lender. It seems like the landlord right now is the one that is most between the rock and the hard place. Tenants are making unilateral decisions to either not pay, or they just frankly cannot pay rent. Yeah, are lenders giving relief? What are you seeing, Alan?
No, nothing definitive. And it depends on the lender too. You've got, clearly when you're dealing with a local lender, say a bank, they are a little more flexible. So all your landlords need to be contacting their lender, obviously, having a phone conversation and an email conversation with them, talking about what their plan, what their expectations are. So our experience so far, we have CMBS loans, we have local loans. The local banks are telling me that they will give us a 60 to 90 day reprieve, potentially, but they still don't know because they're regulated they're regulated as well. So nothing has been set with those guys, except they do expect some kind of relief at a minimum of 60 days from the landlords. And that's not forgiveness. Again, there's a big difference between forgiveness, rent forgiveness, and rent deferment or loan deferment. This is all deferment. So basically they're saying, we're just going to defer your loan the extra 60, 90 days. Now, CMBS, who knows? Those guys won't even return your call when you're paying, so much less when you're not paying. If you have a CMBS loan right now, I'd be very concerned because I just don't know what they're going to do. They don't really care who you are. They don't have a personal relationship with you. And all they're doing is simply doing what their boss is saying. And if they want that property, they're going to try to get it. Now, having said that, just like there is no evictions in most of the states, there's also no foreclosure in many of the states, if not all of them. So you kind of have a combination of, well, you can't evict the tenants, but they can't foreclose on you either. So I think the lending world, including the CMBS, probably even further back, but the lending world is probably 2 weeks behind the tenant world. I think the tenant world is a little bit further ahead as far as what's expected from them. And of course, what we have found for what most of the landlords we're recommending, and this is for our own stuff, is that talk to your tenants. Don't just ignore them. Get information out to them about how to self-help. And there is 2 programs that are very viable for most all the retailers, and certainly some of the office tenants as well. So getting into that gets into small business loans. So before I get into that, as far as building services, we're trying to keep people employed. And that would include your security staff, that would include your janitorial, as best as you can. Each building's going to be a little different, but the reality is once you lay these people off, there's a fairly significant impact for them. Now, 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now, that might change, but we haven't done any draconian moves on any of our properties and told our landlords, let's just keep what we have for now, cut back what we can without impacting people's lives too much. So that's what we dealt with on the building services side. So what do you do? This is actually fairly significant for all of us because we all qualify for the Small Business Administration loans. There are 2 loans that are available to us, and I say us meaning us as real estate companies, our clients as tenants. They all can apply for this, and they sure as hell we're suggesting that if they don't apply, then don't talk to them because they're not self-helping. And if you're not willing to self-help yourself, if you're too busy or you can't deal with it, then, we have nothing to talk about. So you need to self-help. And those two loans are PPP, called PPP EIDL. Now you can apply for both. However, one will offset the other. And one you can apply today, one you won't be able to apply until the banks get their regulations set. So let's talk about the EIDL real quick. That was the first SBA, it's called the economic, can you go to the next step there? The Economic Injury Disaster Loan. That was the first one that came out. That's the one people have been talking about mostly. And that is what you can apply for online. You can do it as a company. You can do it. It's basically 500 people or less, employees. And I'm not going to go through the list, but you can see what it entitles and what you can get. I do believe that what it doesn't say in there, I think $10,000 of that is forgivable. In other words, you just don't pay it. And that is something you can apply for now. And that's basically to get you started, if you will, and get your money quickly. The second loan, which is the new part of the CARES Act, is the PP&P loan, Paycheck Protection Program. And that is that is something you have to go through your local bank or an SBA lender to get. Again, it's a fairly will be a streamlined process, but you cannot go directly to the SBA to do that. You have to go through you cannot go directly to SBA. You have to go through your local bank or your lender, SBA approved lender. And this basically pays for your payrolls, pays for employee salaries, it pays for the rent, And if your client owns their property, it would pay for the mortgage. And basically what it is, it covers your cash flow for 8 weeks, and it's forgivable. So as long as you keep your employees for 8 weeks, all that money that you would spend is forgivable. That's February 15th to June 30th. It ends on June 30th. Anything after June 30th, now you start paying for. Again, it has to be a certified SBA lender. Again, it pays for utilities, it pays for payroll, and there is no personal guarantee and no collateral needed for the PP&P loan. What you have to do is you have to get friendly with your local bank and make sure that they get you on the list early, because after June, if you don't get approved, anything after June 30th, you have to pay back. The interest rate's about 4%, and it's a 10-year payout. So that kind of gives you, so what we're, as a landlord, this is information your tenants need to know about. They need to apply for the economic injury disaster loan so they can get some money quickly, and then the long-term pay the PP&P program. That pays for the rent, so it will cover the landlord. But if they don't offer, if they don't ask for it, the easiest thing for them to do is to call up and say, I need rent relief. And that's where you've got to try to help them through this process and say, hey, have you gotten this? Have you done this? Have you talked to your banker about this?
I was just shared a letter from one of our partners who owns property in Chicago. It's a fantastic letter from a landlord to a tenant that outlines all of these things with a couple of links. If anybody wants that, just shoot me an email and I'm happy to send it to you as an example. Another couple of thoughts as principals. If you own your own building, MDL Group, we own our own building that we occupy. When rates were reduced, we reached out to our lender. We're going to refinance our loan. We have an SBA 7A loan on our building. The interest rate reduction that we're going to get is about $35,000 difference annually from what we had and what we're going to have. So that's an option. If you own your own building, look into that. I am curious, any of the principals on the call, have any of you already applied for the economic injury disaster loan, and or what have you done for the PPP? I know the PPP, we reached out to our bank and we're in the discussion. However, like Alan said, the applications aren't out yet.
No, you cannot apply for PP&P right now because it's not available.
So Alan, you've applied for the economic injury disaster loan.
I
Anybody
did.
else? If you have, go ahead and put in the comment in the comment box that you have.
Alan is one or the other, correct? If you apply
Nope.
for that.
Nope. You need to apply to both. Don't just bet on one or the other. Apply to both.
Why are you saying that?
This is
Because
Scott.
one has nothing to do with the other. They want to know if you've applied for both, but you need to apply for both. That's what I've been told. Now, I'm no expert here. I've just been researching this, but I have been told by many people that you need to apply for both.
I think if you apply for both, but you can't be eligible for both, correct? In other words, if you can't take advantage
You
of
can be
both.
eligible for, you can take advantage of it, but the forgiveness you can't take advantage of. In other words, if you're getting forgiveness on one, you can't get on the other.
So a lot of info to sift through and find out what is appropriate for you. You know, if we're sitting here having this conversation about ourselves and our own businesses, imagine what our tenants and landlords are trying to sift through. And it's an opportunity for us. It sounds like we already are at the cutting edge of this, the leading edge, in helping our various clients navigate these unprecedented waters. So I think that's it for the prepared remarks. We can open it up for Q&A. There's been some great back and forth going in the chat box. Are there any other questions at this time or anything else to add that wasn't mentioned?
Is Miguel still on the phone? I'd be curious to know what he's experiencing in Mexico, if Miguel is still on the phone.
Hey, how are you guys here? Yes, I am here. Well, more or less the same. We've been experiencing a less number of new companies coming and willing to sign leases. Just yesterday, we managed a company named DSV, a company, a European logistic company, and they just sent me letters asking developers to not charge them rent for 3 months, willing to exchange that benefit for extending the lease 4 months at the end of the lease term, which is kind of not precisely paying off the benefit they're asking. But yes, we are in that process. As you know, we've been also managing Amazon accounts, and we are working hard for them. They are opening a few distribution centers, so it's kind of with contradictory signs or signals. But if you check the Mexican REITs, their value in the stock exchange is going down precisely because they are considering a discount in leases and rental incomes for the next 2 or 3 months. So it's pretty much the same as you have in the US.
Yeah. This is Howard. I'm finding nobody really knows anything yet. It's fairly early on. I spoke to a large client of mine who's a law firm with about 125,000 feet between New York and New Jersey, California. And the managing partner is saying, obviously subject to negotiations with his own partners, doesn't want to defer rent if he can avoid it. So far, his work is holding up. He's got 240 people working remotely. The only real issue he's going to come with is that his litigators are going to run out of work and all the courts are closed, so that, you know, he's got a number of really high paid people that are not going to be producing any revenue. But he views the deferrals as just kicking the can down the road, and you know, he'll be subject to some, you know, significant extra payments a few months down the road. And everything that I've heard and my law firm clients have heard, for those of you that work with law firms, is that the litigation and the insurance claims work on this thing is going to be absolutely through the roof. So the good news is, once we get past this, their cash flow is going to be very strong, but they're stuck in a problem right now. So just it's got a different situation.
Alan, can you state what you just typed in the chat box? That's profound. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. So all your agents can apply for this PPP loan because they included independent contractors in as a qualified employee. And so they can apply directly. If they have their own LLC, they can apply as their own LLC, and based on what they would normally be making, what they're, and by the way, when I didn't mention, you are limited to a $100,000 salary cap. So anything over 100,000 you're not getting, but they will do, it's prorated for $100,000. So, you know, that your independent contractors should apply as well.
Alan,
not just use a business.
In the chat box, I dropped the document in there that says CARES Act 2. Everyone see that? A little further up?
Yep.
You open that document, it references what you're talking about, Alan, and it would be on, looks like the third page. It starts off, how much can I borrow? About towards the second part of that page, it has sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed individuals. And you can see it right there where it spells it out. It basically says,
right, and excluded on the payroll cost, you'll see where it says the annual side at 100. So, you know, it's not going to basically save you, but it will certainly help sustain you.
It's really fascinating.
I would definitely be talking to your agents.
Yeah.
All your agents should know about this.
That's my massive takeaway from this call. I could tell you that right now.
And the second thing you need to do is you need to get real friendly with your SBA lender, because they could put you on a list that they'll get to it in about 3 weeks, or they could put you on the list to get to it immediately. So you got to be first in, first out. So you want to try to get on your SBA top list.
Terrific. Looks like the chat box has kind of slowed down a bit as far as any more questions. As I say that, has anyone seen commission payments slow down yet?
Yes. Yes.
What's that?
Yes.
Commissions.
Those are gone, I thought.
So I asked my agents to send me any transactions that have been postponed or canceled because of this. And mind you, this has been it's been about 2 weeks or so. In 2 weeks, we have close to $400,000 in postponed deals, $400,000 commissions to us, and at least $200,000 in canceled transactions from what my agents have sent me so far.
Similar.
I think we as agents,
$600,000.
as brokers, I think you can expect to not get paid. I think the landlords are going to pay us last. If you've got outstanding commissions, like second payments or whatever, or hadn't gotten paid yet, I think you're going to struggle to get paid by landlords right now.
Fair assessment.
This is Dan Dakovic. One thing that we looked at also is we talked to our law firm regarding this CARE Act. Under the CARE Act, independent contractors are able to apply for unemployment insurance. So for some of your younger brokers, we have about 4 younger brokers that just got into the business. We looked at for them to apply for the unemployment insurance, because they can get, at least for next 4 weeks, they can get about $1,200 a month, which is much better than sitting at home and not getting any commissions coming in for a little while. So.
Is anybody paying draws? We have one new guy that we have on it's not a draw. We were talking about him converting to a draw in June. I'm probably going to revisit that for his benefit, not for ours. Anybody else on draws?
I have a few people that I'm suspecting I'll probably have to go there. Haven't done it yet, but I will if I need to.
Any creative incentives for brokers during this time?
Keep in contact with all your clients. That's the best thing I can say. There's still some deals being done out there. We had our call this morning with all our brokers, and obviously it's slowed down, but there's still deals being transacted. I had a very large closing last week that was very fortunate, and we have some new listings right now. Obviously a lot less than we had been, but business is still taking place.
You know what? My overriding message is this is a great time to prospect for new listings, to be very honest with you. I think that most brokers are hiding out in their basements, and they're not reaching out to building owners, to the clients. And if you have a proactive, positive message, and it's an opportunity, I think, to reestablish new relationships, or establish new relationships and possibly reestablish old ones. And that's my overriding message. Obviously, I wouldn't be cold calling tenants and looking for transactions, because nobody wants to hear that. But Prospecting for new listings, I think, is the approach right now. Because when we do come out of this, I think there's going to be some product available and there's going to be some opportunities. There's always opportunities. So the good broker identifies what are the opportunities that are going to present themselves when this does end. So, don't stick your head in the sand. Figure out how you're going to succeed when we all come out of this. And I think that the overriding message as a principal too is to be positive, constantly be positive. Unfortunately, or not unfortunately, it's just the position that we're all in. You have to be a cheerleader for your people too. A lot of them are worried about their business and what they're going to do and where their next deal is coming from, and how are they going to be impacted next month or 6 months from now. It's important that we all are cheerleaders and we're positive and present a positive message. I really believe that.
Scott's question right here. I haven't seen the banks pull back anything that they've already committed to. They've even told me, especially one of my main lenders, that it's business as usual, air quotes. Might be a little bit slower because everybody's working remotely, but they still have a lot of money to put out on the streets. Like I said, I had a couple of closings, or a closing last week. We had a couple of other closings, and banks are coming to the table with stuff they've committed to so far. As far as starting a new loan application, I don't think anybody knows the answer to that right now, but they claim to be lending money.
Yeah, we've had one group that lost a loan from CMBS. They just basically walked out the door and said, "We're not going to do it."
Right.
So as you guys said, there's no heart there.
Not CMBS, no, right?
About a week ago, I received, I think it was a LinkedIn video, just a minute or so, quick tip for business owners. On your P&Ls, create a line item for COVID-related either lost revenue or expenses. And that way, it's if you start tracking now, it's easy to track going forward.
Okay.
So I think we're going to call it here. We're about 50 minutes in. A lot of fantastic information. Again, 72 total CORFAC offices, 36 principals on this call. It is recorded. It will be sent out. Just some parting thoughts. This is a fantastic platform. It's a great way for us, as we saw, to get connected and share best practices. Look forward to more of these. Look forward to them in the form of, this is a call for principals. We're looking to organize calls for the agents within our offices. We're looking to organize calls for product type and geography specifically, with the objective of connecting all of the CORFAC members to share best practices and nurture referral business. So that's it for me. I want to thank the panelists, Mason, Joe, and Alan. Thank the CORFAC staff. Thank everybody who chimed in and contributed generously with your thoughts and information. I don't know if there's a way we can copy all of the questions and dialogue in the chat before we close this, but I think that would be good to create a PDF alongside the other resources that were shared and this recording. And again, this will all be sent out.
One little thing. As far as when we move forward and continue these calls, and I think we want to try to do these pretty frequently, just keep everybody connected, and especially with everything moving so quickly, keep everybody updated along the way. If anyone has any suggestions for any specific topics or specific calls or specific groups that you want to isolate in one of these calls, please just email staff or me or any of us here that are organizing these things. And again, I think we want to do these as often as everybody's willing to participate in them.
And Joe, we are going to send out a survey to everybody after this is over, And we'll try to keep it brief so it's not too long for you to do, but we'll ask those specific questions about what can we do going forward to make this all good for everybody,
Excellent.
and how you felt about how this went.
Good stuff.
Perfect.
Thanks,
Thank you, John.
thanks for moderating, Chaim.
My
Yeah,
pleasure.
thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thanks,
All
all.
right, hang in
Take
there.
care.
Guys,
Thank you.
Stay safe.
it's a great escape from the monotony of this whole thing.
Yeah, right. People are dropping off.
We can stop the recording. I don't know if we want to stay on for a debrief.